Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another edition of Jersey Boy Sports Talk. I am Nick Bogatis, along here with, I think that's CB Garrett. I mean, he hasn't been with us for a while. Uh, he is managing the Voorhees girls basketball team. I think they're making it pretty far in the state tournament. So CB has some stuff to do there. How you doing out there, CB?
I'm great. It's been more than managing, and just more than girls basketball, wrestling, a lot of announcing to do. So I've been getting caught up on that. But I'm back here with you, and isn't that all you want?
That is all I want in my life, CB, to be honest. Now, we're missing Snowball tonight, wherever you might be. Unfortunately, he could not be with us tonight, but that really does not matter because we have a pretty great show for you guys tonight. Again, March has just dropped upon us, so not a whole lot going on. We're going to talk some NFL trades going on, some free agency talk. But really not a whole lot until next week when we get into Selection Sunday. We'll have all of our bubble team predictions and all that Joe Lunardi stuff coming out on our show next week. And then we really get into March Madness. Probably have some Garden State Sharks segment, similar segment coming up in March for the tournament. But tonight's going to be kind of quick because there's not really a whole lot going on. But regardless, phone number for tonight is 862-400-6461. Like us on Facebook at Jersey Boy Sports Talk with Nick Bogatis, CB Garrett, and Matt Stolboff. And our Twitter, as always, is at JB Sports Talk. So, first and foremost, Syracuse. Whole lot of stuff going on there. Basically, when the investigation was launched, I think it started this year, or prior to the season, they brought upon themselves a postseason ban, so they will not be in the tournament this year, or the NIT, or whatever else they have. So that takes care of their postseason ban. There won't be any more sanctions in terms of the tournament. But a whole lot more came onto Syracuse, basically for all these infractions coming over the last 8 years. Scholarship reduction, they're losing, I think they're losing 3 scholarships every year for the next 4 years. They have to forfeit money that they won from the ACC and Big East tournaments. They have to forfeit revenue from the NCAA tournament. And also, Jim Boeheim is suspended for 9 ACC games next year. And 9 games doesn't seem a lot for infractions over 8 years. But they're all conference games, so that's a pretty big deal. And the scholarships is going to be a huge thing for them because they're looking at one of the best classes they've ever had, and that's going to be a big hit for them. So CB, what do you make of all these sanctions? Is it too lenient? Is it too harsh? What are you thinking?
First off, I still don't really understand what vacating 108 wins does. That's the biggest thing. I've never understood what vacating wins does. I'm sure some point down the road we'll see him getting those wins back just as Penn State did. I'm sure these sanctions will be lightened just as Penn State's were. 4 years of 3 scholarships apiece is a lot, but Syracuse does have a very good recruiting class coming in next year. Number 4th right now is what it's ranked, and all their commits have committed to stay with Syracuse. So I think this team next year is going to be relatively unaffected. They only lose Rakeem Christmas. I think basketball-wise, they're still going to be very good next year. Now, they are going to be hit hard. A lot of that's going to be financially and a lot of probation. But I think Syracuse as a program will get through this, especially because of where they are right now. While they might take a little bit of a step back towards the end of these penalties where they're not going to be able to bring in as many recruits as they would like to. As a basketball program, I think they're going to be fine. But it really begs to differ. Who can you trust anymore? All of these coaches that seem as father figures, Joe Paterno and now Jim Boeheim, they are seen as immortal and legendary, but they have all had their scandals. And now while Paterno's may have been a lot more harmful, Boeheim's is of equal, still has a lot of magnitude to it. Over an 8-year period of stuff where boosters apparently had passwords to players and were emailing teachers for them. It's stuff that you don't really want to see in college.
The thing is, now, usually when we see this kind of stuff in football, it's the talking to agents, it's the paying players, and all that kind of stuff. And that's really I don't agree with the NCAA on those rules in the first place. But this was a lot of big time stuff. This was academic fraud with a lot of players. This was team managers and assistant coaches posing as players, like you said, and boosters, sending teachers emails. They had kids logging in, doing their homework for them, all that kind of stuff, and in addition, playing with academically ineligible players. So I think these were pretty fair sanctions against Syracuse. I really, like you said, I never liked the idea of vacating wins because that does nothing. You just set Jim Boeheim back from being second all time in wins to being sixth. And what did he really do? I'm not sure he orchestrated all this. I think in college sports, this is a lot with boosters. Boosters have way too much power in college sports. And I feel like they could take control of a lot of it. I don't know what the NCAA found in this investigation. If Jim Boeheim had a better role, but as of now, they're charging him with not monitoring the situation correctly, which I think is total BS. I don't think he should be getting the suspension. I don't think he should be forfeiting all those wins. But financially, I think the sanctions are fair. The scholarships, I think those are fair. The only thing I was really surprised with is that the NCAA typically likes to beat up on these smaller programs and kind of prove themselves that way. They don't usually go after big programs like this. We saw how they dropped the ball with Miami, and I mean, aside from Penn State, when's the last time they dropped heavy sanctions on a big program? And Penn State, what was it, 2 years, 3 years? They end up dropping most of it anyway.
4-year bowl ban that was reduced to, I think, like 2 years.
Yeah, Ohio State got like a 1-year bowl ban. The big schools don't really get this kind of stuff. I was surprised by that. But I think Syracuse will be fine. I really don't think this will have in terms of basketball itself. Obviously, they're going to be set back a little bit financially. But like you said, the recruiting class is great. I'm not sure if the NCAA is going to let the players opt out like they did with Penn State. But, I mean, there's not a tournament ban or anything for upcoming years. So, I don't think that's a problem.
And most of the players said after today's game that they would be back. So, I think Syracuse is going to have a very strong team next year. They lose one senior who played, and that was Rakeem Christmas. They're going to get Chris McCall back from injury. They're going to get DeJuan Coleman back from injury. They bring in 2'6'9" power forwards and 2 small forwards, all ranked in the top, I believe, 86 on ESPN's Top 100. And bringing in 4 recruits like that, that's a big deal. Syracuse is going to have a very strong team next year, regardless of these penalties.
Okay. And we're sticking with college basketball for a little bit. Kentucky. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but Kentucky is 30-0. Granted, they are playing in the SEC, which isn't a great conference. But there are some good teams in there. Georgia was quietly a pretty good team this year. Along the way, Kentucky, they beat Kansas 72-40, who was number 5. They beat number 6 Texas 63-51. They beat number 21 UNC 84-70. They beat Louisville. And they also beat Arkansas, who was number 18 in the country. They did have a couple close calls. I know Ole Miss went into overtime. Texas A&M double overtime, which aren't really that great of opponents. But CB, now heading into the SEC tournament and then the NCAA tournament, can Kentucky stay undefeated?
I think the overwhelming majority of people think that they will. I'm not so sure. I think there's only 2 or maybe 3 teams that can really test them. Those teams being Virginia, Duke, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I like the most out of those 3 teams to give them a chance because I think Frank Kaminsky has the ability to draw one of their 7-footers away from the basket because he can play on the perimeter so much as a 7-footer. I think that's the only chance that Kentucky really has to give them a matchup problem that might create more lanes than normal to drive to the basket on Kentucky. Now, granted, still a very good defensive team overall. I think that pulling one of those bigs away from the basket is going to be anyone's best shot. And Wisconsin is the only team that really has a chance to do that with Frank Kaminsky. Duke has a chance if they shoot really well from three and they have Joel Okafor inside. And then Virginia is just such a good defensive team that I wouldn't count them out of anything. But other than that, they wouldn't have to play more than two of those teams, with Wisconsin likely going to line up in the region as a 2 seed and then probably going to play either Virginia or Duke in the finals or maybe the Final Four. But I don't see them really having too much trouble. Maybe one of those teams can give them a scare, but likely they're going to go undefeated this year.
See, I got to disagree with you there. My problem with Kentucky is that they're a great team. I mean, if you look at their roster, they're stacked. They got the Harrison twins. They got Willie Cauley-Stein. They're loaded, but they always play down, and that's why they went into double overtime with Texas A&M. That's why they went into overtime with Ole Miss. That's why they almost got beat by Georgia. They always play down to their competition, and that's going to be a problem in the NCAA tournament because we saw Duke get upset by Lehigh. We saw Dayton pull off an upset last year. All these, granted, a 16th seed has never beaten a 1 seed, and I don't expect that to happen to Kentucky. But in the later rounds, I can see Kentucky getting upset, and especially when they go up against teams like you said, Virginia. I love Virginia. I think they'll make it to the Final Four. I really don't have a front runner so far, because I really don't think Kentucky is going to win the title this year. I don't know how far they're going to get, but I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they stay undefeated. A lot of it's going to have to do with how the bracket shakes out, but I think they'll get upset somewhere along the way. So we have had a lot going on in the football world.
And just breaking news with Mark Ingram agreeing to a 4-year deal with the New Orleans Saints.
And that's funny because I had, there were rumors circulating around that Chip Kelly was going to go after Mark Ingram, kind of get somewhat of a replacement for LaShawn McCoy. But I guess that's kind of out of reach now. Because Mark Ingram's staying with the Saints, apparently. But speaking of Chip Kelly, CB, I can't even begin to articulate my feelings on this LaShawn McCoy trade. LaShawn McCoy straight up for Kiko Alonso. What were your immediate thoughts?
I was really surprised. Kiko Alonso is a very talented player, but he missed all of last year, and LaShawn McCoy is still one of the best running backs in the NFL. They don't really have a replacement. Chris Polk isn't really a name that jumps out as you as someone that's going to scare you.
Darren Sproles.
Yeah, but Darren Sproles isn't really going to be a feature back. He's more of a change of pace kind of guy. I just don't see him being really a feature back. He can get every carry. I think that it makes Buffalo a lot stronger now, and they have obviously a great defense. They have a rushing attack, and we know Rex Ryan loves to run the ball. They just really need a quarterback. They brought in Josh McCown. Who knows if he's going to be able to be the guy? We saw in a backup role in Chicago. He was great, but when giving the starting job in Tampa Bay, not so much. I think that Buffalo is really set up to start making a run and closing in on New England. Now, I don't think that'll happen this year because New England is still a very talented team. But New England's aging a little bit. I think Buffalo is starting to put themselves in position to be the next team in the AFC East.
Well, I got to stop you there. They actually traded for Matt Castle. So they're looking at Matt Castle for their future, which is a huge mistake. But the main thing with this trade is Chip Kelly is trying to say, well, I can win with anyone in the backfield. And Rex Ryan is saying, well, I can win with anyone on defense. The Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Speaking as a LaShawn McCoy fantasy owner for the first half of this past season, he wasn't spectacular. He's still one of the best running backs in the league,